Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. Let's talk about verts, the introverted and the extroverted, and figure out what they are. What's the difference between them? Do I have a predominance to be more extroverted, or do I have the predominance to be more introverted? Because how we're living our lives could be in direct conflict to what that actually is. I learned many years ago, though it took me many years to assimilate the information, I learned many years ago, and it came as quite a shock, when a therapist I had said, probably 10 years now, at least, if not a few years more, that, well, Kate, you're actually more introverted, aren't you? How would you describe yourself, introverted or extroverted? And I said, well, I like to be the life of the party for about that long and, really have a great time for about that long. And I enjoy talking for about that long or about that long, but when I'm done, I'm done, and I'm ready to go home and just crash. And she said, do you suppose maybe we want to look at the idea of what introverted and extroverted really is? She said, where do you get your balance? Where do you restore? Where do you regenerate? 111. And I said, well, home by myself, totally just doing my own thing and Xing out the entire world. I'm not one for the after party. I'm one for the receiving line of, yeah, thank you very much. And then I want to bug out and go home, with my little pod of comfort. That's just me personally. And yet there have been plenty of times where I've attended parties and had a great time. It's just that's not my predominant. But I could never quite figure out my own self in trying to regulate in my mind, how is it I can be very social, talk my head right off, and everybody else with me, and just keep on going, and have this Energizer Bunny type energy sometimes, and other times it's like my rechargeable battery it wasn't rechargeable, it just died, and I'm over here. So that's what she was trying to help me understand, is that perhaps you're more introverted than you are extroverted. And I said, yeah, but I seem so loud, and I seem like, and she said, exactly. Maybe you want to seem like something more realistic in your mind about where it is that you are recharging the battery, because you don't just have a dead one in there. It's been, pretty tapped out and hasn't been recharged by a real recharging station. It's been recharged with a bunch of, stuff that kind of looks like it should be fitting the bill, and it's really not. So let's talk about how can we heal and how can we move through this to see yourself as something different, not more or less, just different. That yes, you can be quite extroverted. People that are extroverted enjoy engaging in group context. They enjoy meeting new people. They're, typically leaders. They have a lot of things that fulfill them from the outside. That's how their recharging station works, is they get it from their outside stimuli, whereas introverts get more of their stuff from their inside stimuli. And that absolutely is, the inner energy tune-up that she talked about, is where do you get that tune-up? And it absolutely, for me, does come from predominantly being within my own self, because I'm already there thinking, my mind's going anyway. I might as well use that to my advantage and be using my mind in a more helpful way and understand myself as more introverted than extroverted. And there's no reason why I would necessarily enjoy doing some of those social things or some of the party things or some of the other things that seem like they're no big deal to people who are extroverted and enjoy that kind of engagement and are actually fed and nourished by those types of engagements. That makes sense. However, I could never understand. It's just me and my social anxiety. It's me and my awkwardness. It's me and my something that's just way hella broken. Otherwise, I'd be able to seamlessly move in and out of these scenarios and not look like, a weird person, an awkward person, a person who's struggling hard everywhere she goes and looks like it. And yeah, that's a hot mess. So when this therapist mentioned that, it really struck me. And I got what she said. I just had no idea how to really assimilate that, and how do I begin turning that, back into myself so that I can gain energy and standing and footing and healing from being within my own self and within the group context, because I don't live in an isolated bubble away from the rest of the whole world. None of us, no matter how isolationist, pardon me, we may be and really enjoy it, we are none of us that are separate, apart, and entirely segregated from the rest of humanity. We may never see anybody, we may never interact. However, we're still part of a closed system here. Earth is a closed system, and we're all here together contextually. So how can I reach out and find myself within the context of that and find my introverted needs and my extroverted needs, wherever they are, to be perhaps a little bit more in the ambivert department, where I'm really balanced, where I can seek and find, in the isolation period, I can seek and find more there. If it's been a place where I really didn't like to be alone, I don't want to do this, maybe that's where I turn that around and say, I'm going to need to be a little more introverted here, because that's a weak point. That's a point where I feel discomfort. I don't care to feel discomfort. Let me investigate that and see, maybe there's a more energetic attunement and alignment that can happen within me, that doesn't need to happen with anybody else, that doesn't need to happen because somebody said something or did something or I had proof or demonstration or confirmation. Perhaps I can really just get in here and feel for that feeling of, where's my alignment, where's my assignment, where's my life purpose, where's my moment right now. If I don't want to ask those big questions, where am I right now in the big cosmic now, the big cosmic wow, where's that synchronistic flow, and how can I get into that, and how can I know? And for those of us that reside, more in the introvert department, maybe it's time for us to look and see how we can engage with the outside world, at whatever level we do that, even if we don't mess with humans on the whole, or other people, or we live in a basement and we never come out to see sunlight, whatever your jam is, whatever your groove is. However, if we're looking for more answers and we're looking for a revelation about ourselves, maybe it's helpful to look at ourselves more completely and understand, because I just didn't understand the usages of the word extrovert and introvert, that, oh yeah, I'm extroverted in my personality as it looks, in my characteristics. Sometimes I'm quite extroverted looking, and yet by true definition of what that is for realsy, and not misunderstanding the definition at all, I'm actually quite introverted. And now understanding that better and understanding where I'm likely to excel with my extroverted tendencies and where I'm likely to excel with my introverted tendencies, and then marry those into a more ambivert experience where I can be in nature and engaging with whoever is, on the trail, hiking perhaps at the same time I am, and having a nice conversation, and yet still also being quite introverted and quite into me, with the extroversion of carrying on conversation with somebody else, or having the visceral experience of right here, I'm right here, that I'm plugged in deep into the introverted me, the very, very, I need this tune up and this alignment from within me, and I'm calling upon the extroverted energy that lives outside of me, presumably, that is somehow separated from me. Let me change whatever that is in my perception and my beliefs of myself, in wherever it is that would be ganking that up a little bit. Let me change that, tweak it just a smidge to say, I can embrace the energy in a brand new way. And maybe I'm going to reach healing and feeling 808 and some really great stuff by looking to a different source of nourishment. Perhaps I, reach out and touch a tree and embrace that differently. Perhaps I go in and I meditate. Perhaps I have a conversation with someone that I've been on the edge of, wanting to, and, whatever it is, wherever we are, that we can take the tiniest little step, those are really the beginnings of how we move forward to find our ambivert if we're interested in it. A lot of us, when we're in those polarities, the omnivert feels both of them. They feel the extrovert and the introvert wildly swinging, bipolar looking probably. Yeah, I understand that. That really it would help more to reside more in that balance, no matter what we call ourselves, no matter how we label ourselves, no matter what anybody else would tell us. We have our own story. The coding is within us. The language, the grammar, the skills, all of it are inside us to write our own story. We don't need anyone, 909, to write our story for us. However, since many of us are going with the story that's already written, how about if we at least understand the context and all the grammar and all the wording and every word, that we understand the double entendre there is, that means something else. And extroverted and introverted there, Kate, that's when you might want to don't wait and getting this and understanding it. And I'm so glad that she made the observation, because she wasn't being unkind. She just simply was noticing that I was way out of line. I was out of complete misunderstanding myself, because at the time I was smoking quite heavily, cigarettes, and reading self-help books, by the ton, 10,000 pages at a time, just, going through to find the way. And also very heavily using benzodiazepines to get away from it when it didn't make sense at all. And rather than shame and blame and get into that, that whole thing, thank you very much, Mama Bon Bon, forever and ever, amen, thank you. That rather than get into that part of it, she said, we're not doing the shame thing. We're not doing the shame tour. That's not what I am to you. And I don't want to hear your story about, how awful you are. Let's talk about the awful. Let's talk about the behaviors, what drives you to do that. And that's how we started that whole conversation. Well, I need to make all the noise stop, make all those extra sounds that sound like knives are just, pounding into my ear, or sight. There's lights and stuff that literally feel like they're piercing my brain, and piercing every single nerve ending with pain at 10 max. It's going to poke right there. That's how I felt all the time, and why I was heavily using things to avoid, and literally go to sleep. So they weren't helpful. They don't make a fully functional human being, and they certainly didn't make me happy. However, I couldn't understand. And when she brought that observation forward of, I'm not here to guilt trip you about what you're doing or what you're not doing. You're here voluntarily. I'm here voluntarily. And so we don't have that relationship. I ain't your mama, and I ain't your dysfunctional family, and I ain't your codependent issues. I'm here to, observe them 11:11 and make comment about things that I see that could be relevant to you. And that was magical moment right then. I remember her saying it and me going, no, that can't be right. I'm extroverted. And she says, yeah, it can't be right because you don't understand the word. You don't know what the true definition is. And that makes a lot of difference when we don't fully understand what we're dealing with or the context in which we're dealing. Know what game you're playing and know what field you're standing on, because even if you're a great hockey player, if you're standing, on a basketball court, I'm not sure it conveys the same way, 11:44. So it was very helpful for her to bring me up to speed on, this is really more helpful for you to understand the more universal understanding of this word, the real true meaning of this. It's much more helpful than to go and ride with the falsehood that you're somehow broken, or that you're somehow, this fraud, or this piece of junk person, this, waste of life that just can't figure anything out. And I'm not going to be able to figure out things that are in a dumb system, that are in a dumb loop, a stupid loop, stupid loop, stupid loop. And for as long as I would stand there and believe that my neurological system and my spiritual self, my ego self, my personality self, my Gemini self, my identities, whatever they are, my different roles that have been assigned to me, the story that was written for me, if part of the story doesn't also include the raw data and the facts about my neurological system and my needs of how to rehab that and recharge that and rehabilitate that properly, then I'm going to be left with 1244, not nearly enough information for me to give myself the best place to be for true salvation and divinity to come in and bring healing and to bring resolution to all of the hairy feelings and all of those hairy issues with neurology. I find that the more I really relate to my outside world and my inside world and connect more with the ambivert of me, I'm able to be less bothered by sounds and sights and different people's personalities, whereas in the past it was just too much. So learn quickly, Kate, that extroverted doesn't mean what you thought it did. Introverted doesn't mean what you thought it did relative to you. That the reason that you're doing this, look for and find, why are you seeking those ways to, be gone from the present moment, to be out of your element in that way. Maybe you're in the wrong element. Maybe you're using the wrong element to go away. So those are critical questions to ask. And they certainly, as I said, didn't change overnight. However, my perception of myself changed in that moment, and it did change overnight of, oh, wow, I ain't so right about my own self-awareness and my self-assessment. And I was very happy to know that I was with someone who understood that I'm not your dysfunctional family. I'm not all those dysfunctional messages and the codependency and the weird programming of your toxic family. I'm not any of that, and I'm not here to punish you. Some therapists are, but that's not me. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to help you, 1414, to grow and know yourself and to find your own answers inside. And sometimes it's easier if I prompt you from outside with a very, worthy question to investigate is, are you sure you understand that? And there was nothing that was punishing, shaming, blaming, judging, criticizing, any of that about it. And it was so much better received. And it's just unfolded in a lot of different ways. So whether you identify yourself as extrovert, introvert, really doesn't matter as long as you are identifying yourself as a beautiful divine child of the universe in some way or another, and finding the peace and the knowing that everything does move in harmony, and it just helps so much when we're in that flowing knowing. So take care of yourselves, and whatever part of the day you're in, I hope that you enjoy it, my friend, and get within your skin, because your divine is absolutely fine. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you again next time. Bye bye, friends.